Perfect. Thank you. Today, my guest is Professor Paul Beamish. I will keep my introduction short to maximize our time with him. In the next 30 minutes or so, we'll talk about Paul as a person, Professor Beamish is a thought leader and an esteemed scholar, and finally as a mentor to many PhD students and junior faculty. For the sake of time, I will skip many of his accomplishments and give you a very quick snapshot. Paul is a fellow of the AIB and the Royal Society of Canada and the Asia Pacific Foundation. He has received Best Research Awards from the Academy of Management, the AIB, the Administrative Sciences Association of Canada. He is the past recipient of Best Case Writing Awards from the European Foundation for Management Development, European Case Clearinghouse, AIB. He served as the Editor-in-Chief of JIBS, Editorial Director for Ivey Publishing, and I have to put at least in front of the next set of numbers. Professor Beamish has authored or co-authored at least 60 books, 135 refereed articles, 140 case studies, and supervised 34 dissertations. Thank you for joining us.
Pleasure to be with you.
First question. As a child, what did you want to become when you were growing up?
Well, I think as a child, none of us really know the range of opportunities that are out there. One of the things that I had concluded very early, and this was listening to my mother's three brothers who were all quite nomadic in their jobs and careers, was I want to do something that allows me to travel a lot also. I just thought this sounds so interesting, all these places and adventures that they were having.
How did you choose to be a scholar, though? IB scholar.
Well, that was not the original plan. So the original plan was something, maybe be a writer. And I went to Western as an undergrad in the English program. The Ivey undergrad degree is a second entry program where you get in after the second year. And so during the first 2 years, I concluded that while English literature and a writing career sounds interesting, getting into biz school seemed like a good idea also. And so that's where I went. And then by the end of the first year, I thought, man, this is a really interesting occupation that these professors have. This sounds like a great gig. And of course, all I was thinking of at the time was what I was seeing on the teaching side. I didn't have any insight on the research that goes into a career, but I was attracted to the idea of a university position in a business school.
You got a very long CV. What is something that is not on your CV, something interesting about you?
Well, I mean, we all have interests. Amongst mine is hockey. I love the game. Most years during the winter, I'm on skates at least twice, once to play, and once just to skate and sort of delay other problems. But it's a young person's game, but I love it. And I like to watch it. So I don't think there's anything on my CV about that, but it is a passion. We all have different passions, obviously, and certainly I love to travel, which is not unusual amongst AIB members. I wonder if I will yet still make it into the Century Travelers Club. I'm at 90 plus, but I haven't been on a plane for 11 months at the time we're taping this, so who knows?
If you stop doing what you're doing today, what is the second best alternative career path for you?
Right now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, right now I have a new role. 6 months ago, I became a grandfather for the first time.
Congratulations.
And it is the best job in the world. My sole job is to make this happy, curious, sociable little guy even happier. So I'd be quite content just to stick with that, frankly.
Congratulations. Let's talk about regrets. What is the one thing you wish you would have done, but you didn't?
One thing that I didn't do that I should have done.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, we all have ideas at different stages. I thought about having a longer career than I did in business practice. I've thought about being involved in business startups, and I think these are all potentially wonderful careers. So if you don't know what you missed, you don't know how much you would have missed it, or and so forth.
What is the best advice you received along the path?
Well, when I was thinking about going on to do a PhD, I had a finance professor who I spoke with, and he was very clear about the importance of don't just go straight into another degree program, get some business experience. And my father had been a senior executive in a large multinational, and I thought, yeah, this probably makes pretty good sense. So I did then join Procter & Gamble for 3 years and worked in various units within it, including from the Canadian head office, worked in multiple subsidiaries in other locations, and I learned a lot, and I never regretted having that kind of insight, because I think that when sort of then you start your PhD and then you're looking at theories and models and frameworks, and you've got at least one organizational lens that you can sort of apply against it. And I always thought I've been well served by that.
True. I mean, your career, it worked out fine, perfectly fine. Let's switch gears and let's talk about the research side. How do you summarize your research to an audience who doesn't regularly read your work, to laymen? How do you explain why your work is important to them?
Well, first of all, I don't know about you, but in my experience, lay people, whether they're even your close friends or extended family, nobody walks up to you and says, "Hey, Paul, tell me about your most recent journal article." Okay, like that's a conversation that never takes place. Sometimes we've got to do sort of an elevator pitch, in 1 or 2 minutes, summarize what you do. And in the case of those of us in international business, I mean, not everybody really gets international business. And so I have to typically start with, just how important trade and investment is to the economy and everybody's jobs. And then I will take an area of research. In my case, I would typically take joint ventures, because I've done a fair bit of work for that over a long period of time. And I would explain a couple of key findings, key observations. But I wouldn't push this too long unless they ask more questions, because certainly, some of the things that you and I would like to talk about, well, what method did you use? What theory have you got? What literature are you looking at? The lay people I know couldn't care less on that. So we got to keep our focus on speaking to the audience in a way that they can relate. Interesting.
The original version of this question is, if you are stranded on the side of the road, you have to go to say a pub, the locals are there, curious about you, what do you tell them? But my next door neighbor is an OB professor in Case Western, and I feel the same conversation happening with her when I explain what I'm doing. So it's pretty much walking up to a pub. Okay, what are the few omitted variables in IB research? What have we not covered in detail or enough detail up to this point?
I mean, so one place that I would start, and I've alluded to it already, and I may come back to it, is anything involving actually talking to managers, because one of my major concerns with a lot of research is that a lot of academics, not just in IB, but certainly some in IB, really do not seem to have a well-established managerial perspective. They don't seem to have understood what practice is really like, and how much they can frankly learn from practitioners. I mean, I think that we can all learn a great deal by talking to managers and international managers. I find it a great source of ideas. I'll be talking to somebody and they'll say, well, what would you do in this situation? And you think, I don't remember any literature that's answered that question. That's a good question. Maybe that's something that we should be investigating. So I think that there is a need for much greater involvement by more scholars with practice in some form or other. And there's many ways that one can go about attaining that. But I don't think it should be left to chance, or I don't think it should be ignored, because I think that we miss something if we do.
Anything else?
I think that more multi-level research would be appropriate and helpful. I think we can all get frustrated at times when we read journal articles and the total variance explained is about 25%. And I keep thinking, but what about the other 75%? Can we not do better than this? And I think multi-level is part of the way to get there. But certainly, I think we need to understand phenomena better. I think that certainly if we use, for example, more longitudinal data in our analyses, I think that this is really helpful. This is methods 101, that the limitations of snapshot data. But I do think that being able to track the history over time of either a really big multinational or a series of organizations, I think this has the potential to give us quite a bit more insight that is not widely understood yet.
Thank you. On the other side of the coin is, maybe we studied some things too much. What would be those variables be? What are the things that we overemphasize up to this point?
Well, I think that things like market entry studies. We've had lots of those, and there's still some room for improvement. But there's so many other areas where we haven't really done much yet. Excuse me. That I would hope that we don't spend all of our time sort of making one more marginal brick on the wall sort of contribution, as opposed to tackling some areas that have received insufficient attention. And things like and there's been some work on some of these, but not enough work, and not enough in the journals. Things that are looking at problems that maybe don't affect everybody at this point in time, but in fact may be important in the future. And if we look at all of the recent writings about the implications of COVID, man, there's been a lot of insights from that. And I think that we need to be recognizing that things are going to arise in the future. And we need to be thinking about some of those now.
Mhm. Where do you see the IB research in the next 5 to 10 years? What's the next big question?
Well, I don't think there's one. And I think that's up to everybody who's involved. It's up to you, it's up to me, it's up to, frankly, thousands of people. You know, what is it that they want to do? You know, we're also fortunate that, you know, they pay us to be curious. You know, and we've got choices about what we do research on. And this is highly unusual in society, that we've got this much flexibility. And so, you know, I would hope that we'll continue to look at bigger questions, that, you know, because sometimes we're not looking at some big issues. You know, obviously we're going to have to look and you know, acknowledge, you know, some of the anti-globalization pressures, but that doesn't mean we, you know, suddenly turn away from that. I think there's very, very sound long-term reasons for globalization, but there's limitations. So we'll have to do a better job there. You know, I think that we have choices, okay? And that's, you know, we need to exercise them as opposed to just, you know, relying on, you know, data availability and things like that. You know, let's go get some data. And, you know, one of the great assets for those of us in AIB is that we've got colleagues all over the world now. You know, like you can't now say, well, I know I can't get any, you know, data in Ethiopia. Yes, you can. Okay, there's good Ethiopian scholars that we can partner with to go and get data if that's what we want to be doing. So, you know, we should be, I think, using our assets to a greater extent that, you know, that we naturally have within AIB and that other groups may not have to the same extent, to allow ourselves to look at some of the bigger questions, you know, or to look at some of the same questions, but really nail down just how generalizable certain findings are, or, you know, are most things country specific or region specific.
From your window, how did the culture of IB scholars evolve over time? Is this a fruitful evolution? Did we lose something along the way? Where's the field going?
Well, I mean, I went to my first AIB conference in the early 1980s, and I think I've only ever missed 2 meetings over that subsequent period. You know, and you know, the annual AIB conference to me is you know, a sort of core element of our collective identity. And, you know, I've always found it to be a much more open and manageable environment, even though it's grown from, you know, a few hundred people attending to, you know, 1,000 plus regularly. You know, there's a level of openness and receptiveness to exchanging ideas that I think is terrific. And, you know, I still get excited. It's the only conference I frankly get excited about going to, just because you're able to connect with now, you know, a lot of friends, of course, but also, you know, it feeds our curiosity. There's lots of people talking about it, different and interesting issues. So, you know, I think that while we have grown, I still think that a lot of the core elements are there for the field.
And the third segment is about you as a mentor, as a professor of professors. You have supervised many dissertations, you've seen many PhD students, you've seen many papers as an editor. Let me first start with the mistakes that you see most commonly made. What are the top 3 big major mistakes that IB scholars or junior faculty do that they should avoid?
Okay, well, I think the first one is staying in your office. You know, I think there are some people who don't get out much, and I think it's important for us, both as researchers and as teachers, to actually get out of our office and understand to a greater extent that which we are teaching and researching. And that typically for us, you know, gives us license to travel to a greater extent. I think that too many people are, and I hate to use the phrase, but you know, they're allergic to managers. You know, that they don't see the upside. So, you know, I do think if people got out more often and engaged in other geographies and with people in, you know, related careers like international managers, I think that would be helpful. A second thing I think that people should avoid is trying to do everything yourself. You know, I'm a great believer in co-authorship, collaboration, and, you know, working on projects in research teams. I think that, you know, if you get a good research team, you know, this is a highly productive way to move things along. And I think that's great. And then I guess the third thing I would just say is that for those who do get out and visit other countries, it's important not to, you know, let it all go to your head that somehow, you know, a short-term visit has now made you an expert on that country or culture. It takes rather more time than that, but at least it's a starting point.
So the resources, capabilities, or the tools that people need to develop, what are the important, fresh, new tools that young people should be getting to be successful in IB?
I mean, I think that there are more and more tools available. You know, there's new methods. There's sharing now of techniques that one can use in data analysis. I think that you know, you can go on the web. You know, when AIB has speaker series. You know, I mean, I think there's a lot of content that you know, one can access in an easier fashion than was true in the past, and you know, and people should obviously. But I think that you know, there are still some of the age-old things that you know, if somebody wants to be a good scholar in IB, you know, there's nothing like curiosity to move you along. You know, if you're naturally curious, you know, you want to get up early and stay up late because you want to try to puzzle something out. You know, I think that this is ideal, you know, for people to have that kind of orientation. You know, if you're not curious, if you're not motivated, then this may not be the right career. But if it is, fantastic. You know, I think that, you know, and making sure that you're just persistent then, you know, I think all of us, you know, have to recognize that, you know, if we persist, and I don't just mean for a week or a month, but constantly over a period of years, things are going to work out.
True. Patience. Last question. What is the one question that I should have asked you but didn't?
Well, I mean, as you noted in the introduction, one of the things I've been involved with is writing case studies. And, you know, I like that because it connects me with, you know, I mean, almost all my cases are field-based. It involves interviews in the organization. And I've been writing about 4 cases a year for 35 years now or so. And I've learned a lot from that. And not just about teaching, I've learned a lot about research, you know, and so it's something that I would encourage people to get involved with. One of the realities nowadays is that teaching cases are actually now part of the accreditation agencies, accreditation groups. One of the things that they value, you know, they look, you know, how many cases have your institution prepared? So there's tangible institutional reasons to do it. But I think selfishly, I think that it gives you some research ideas that you wouldn't otherwise have. It gives you some teaching material that, you know, if you work at it, means that your students are going to like it. You know, they would much rather, in general, be seeing something that has met, you know, a test, market test, that their prof wrote, and rather than their prof just being totally a retailer of somebody else's content. So, you know, I think that there's a role, a complementary role, a direct complementary role with case writing and research. And I would just encourage people to try it a little more.
But it also depends on the reward system, right? Some schools need to acknowledge case writing as in a point system. There must be some points earned for tenure, promotion going forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's yes and no. I mean, first of all, I'm not sure even all university administrators are aware that the accreditation groups actually value cases as content now. But having said that, you know, I also think that we can't just do everything for what's being rewarded at our institutions. You know, sometimes, and this is once you're post-tenure, once you're tenured, you know, we have the freedom to pursue some things that are riskier. And I think we should be pursuing some things that are riskier because otherwise too much is just brick on the wall, brick on the wall, brick on the wall. And we won't get as many breakthroughs if people aren't experimenting to a greater extent.
Perfect. Paul, thank you so much for your time. This was great. I learned a lot from the interview. You taught me a lot. I'm sure the audience will agree with me. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. Bye now.